didn't participate in the time change. So, you know,
Well, they're smart. The whole idea is stupid. It
make
was to save lights or something, but then you're sending kids to school in the dark. I don't know. It's all very weird.
well, just pick one. I don't care. Do it the
Yeah,
same the whole year round. Hi, Jan. We're just I was gonna
griping.
yeah, we're just hey, I was gonna just say a little bit about von Franz. You know, she was born in 1915. You know, and her in Austria. Her father was a was on the general staff of Emperor Joseph. You know, the emperor of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. And so then in 1918, she moved, he and her moved after and her sister and her mother moved to Switzerland. And then, so she was, in 1933, she was 18 years old, and and Jung had just come back from Germany, and he just had this great sense that everybody's wandering. This was even before, you know, there was the sense of Wotan, and he wanted to see if that same attitude was in Switzerland. So he invited all these students to his house, and one of them was Marie Louise von Franz. They called her Marlus, Marlus, but anyway, he told her the story of the woman who was on the moon, and she says, "Yeah, but she wasn't really on the moon. She just thought she was." And Jung says, "No, she was on the moon." You know, he was just telling her that in reality, that's where she was in her mind. You know, and she said she'd have to spend either he was crazy or she'd spend the rest of her life trying to find out what he meant. And she actually became an analysan, even though in Switzerland they didn't allow analysis until you were 21. But then she went to pay for her. Hi, Angel and Dawn. To pay for her analysis, she became a Greek translator for Jung, and you know, on his alchemical works. And that was one of the things that split him off from Tony Wolff, because he started going to alchemy, and she didn't really like alchemy that much, you know. So anyway, hey, Angel. Well, anyway, we're going to, and Dawn and everybody, we might as well just get started. This is, you know, it's not that long of a lecture, but boy, it is just packed full. And you know, I think we'll leave the last part about the rose till next time, because it's so beautiful. I just don't want to just have it run out. It's about, there was on his planet a rose, and that rose was very conscious, and it was also represented every woman he'd ever had any relationships with, and she was very moody and difficult. And when she got mad, she would give him the cold shoulder, you know, so she's quite a rose. But anyway, what we'll talk about today is the double meaning of the tree and the Baobab tree, and the double meaning of the prince, and the double meaning of the elephant. I mean, there's a double meaning of all of those, and we'll just go over that a little bit. And then at the end, there is a little statement on seeing 44 sunsets in one day. And what does that mean? When you have, in one day, you experience 44 sunsets, because they make you sad and something. But anyway, you know, one thing about this book on the Puer Aeturnus, when they're talking about the Puer Aeturnus, of course, is the Puer Aeturnus is a can be a very problematical figure. But the mother, hi, Annette. Oh, Charles is again. Charles is here twice. Hi. Okay. Hi, Annette. We're just getting started. Yes, we're just, hey, Charles, we're just getting started on the lecture 3, and we're going to do everything but the part about the rows at the end. We'll do that next time because it's just too important, but this covers the double aspect of the tree, the double aspect of the elephant, and the double aspect of the little prince, and what it meant to exuperate. I just kind of call him ASE, like AOC. I call him ASE. But anyway, so they start out talking about somebody had a question about the sheep in the box, and about how that exuperate showed a lot of courage in his life, and so one could not accuse him of trying to escape reality, at least in the way of the box and of the sheep in the box. But she's saying that she says in answer to that statement that see who. Oh, hi, Carlos and Arpine too. I don't know if I said hi to you.
Hi.
But go ahead. Is there a question? Okay. Anyway, putting the sheep in the box is not a gesture of escape. It springs from what is a nervous weakness, a weakness in health and strength, because of the inability to withstand a conflict. It shows a little bit of impatience and the tension between the inner demands and the outer demands. And so ASC wanted to get back to his work on the engine. I'll just call him Antoine. The star prince, instead of letting him quickly draw a sheep, bothers him, saying none are right. So he's torn between the child whose importance he completely realizes, but who in typically childlike way is bothering him. And so he draws 3 sheep. He draws first he draws the hat or the snake showing the elephant. No, I don't want a snake that swallowed an elephant. Then he draws 3 sheep, and then he draws the sheep in the box. And he says that, hi, Melissa, we're just getting started. You didn't miss anything. So symbolically, the drawing the sheep in the box means a conflict between the demands of the outer and inner life. And boy, do we all have this, There's this tremendous tension. How do you comply with the demands of outer reality and those with the inner life at the same time? It's and this is a very important question for Antoine. The difficulty is the demands of the inner life require a lot of time. You can't do active imagination for 15 minutes or 5 minutes and then go on and do other things. And in analysis, to write. Hi, Jordy. How you doing? In analysis, it sometimes takes. We're just getting started. Sometimes takes 2 hours to write down your dreams, and that's before you meditated on them. So it's a full-time job, but it's also, but there are also the urgent necessities of outer life. And so it's just a great tension in his life of that he must be capable, as far as possible, of giving each claim what it needs. And the weak personality reacted with the shortcut reaction of drawing the sheep in the box. And it also was making a definite decision to deal with outer necessities over any inner ones. And so it's an incapacity for standing this tension between the inner and outer sheep. And now she's going to discuss a little bit about Antoine Saint-Exupéry. He's the star prince was very tiny, and his or the planet is very tiny, and the star prince himself is very delicate. And the hero does not come out of the devouring snake, the mother. So all three, the planet, the little prince, and the hero, that the elephant that doesn't come out of the devouring snake, are slightly fatal and all slightly on the weak side. And she mentions, now this is something that Jung did too. Uh, you know, uh, when he first met Heinrich Zimmer, the great Indologist, he says, he tells Barbara Hanna that he will die young because he has the hands of a child. And he did die young. He died in 1942 of pneumonia. And I don't even know if he was 50, But anyway, she's saying that the lower half of his face, he has a split face. The lower half is a boy of 7. It's of an immature expression, a naive little child's mouth, and a small chin. And I don't know, you can see for yourself. I'm not too good at checking those things out, But she just says that was a child's mouth and a child's chin, and it's just it is kind of a little bit of a unfair to say that, but I don't know. I mean, youngins just do this a little bit. They try to see omens in things, And then she says that the upper half of his face is that of a very intelligent and mature man, and I mean, you can see the upper half of his face is that of an immature man. And the point is she's going to say is that the snake, the hero that can't come out of the devouring mother, and the small planet and the delicate prince all sort of point to a problem of that he can't is not. He says that it is not a criticism, but it shows that he's susceptible and vulnerable, and it's a tragic fact that this is kind of the way the Jungians go. You could say it doesn't mean anything, but it depends on, I guess, how how intuitive you are. And she said other men had been swallowed up by the Puer Aeturnus, but yet they had the strength to stand more conflict. They would not have drawn the sheep in the box, they also act out of sheer impatience, but not from this tragic weakness. So in the mother complex, the sufferer just does not want to stick out a situation. They give in way too easily. And we're going to give a lot of examples of this. And if you were a Puer Aeturnus, you'll know exactly what she's talking about, because she's going to give some examples that just hit me in the head with a 2x4. But she quotes from Jung about the Puer Aeturnus, that there is in him a desire to touch reality, to embrace the earth, to fructify the fields of the world. But he never makes more than a series of fitful starts. His initiative, as well as his staying power, are crippled by the secret memory that the world and happiness may be had as a gift from the mother. You don't need to do anything. So the fragment of the world, which he, like every man, must encounter again and again, is never quite the right one. And if it isn't the right one, you just leave. And we'll find out later that the shadow of the Puer Aeturnus is a cold, ruthless gangster who has no feelings, no relatedness at all, and can just abandon anyone instantly. So since something doesn't just fall into his lap, he won't meet it halfway. So he remains resistant. It has to be whatever it is has to be what in the world he needs remains resistant and has to be conquered and will submit only to force. So this will make demands on his masculinity and his ardor, and above all on his courage and resolution when it comes to throwing his whole being into the scales. And for this, he would need a faithless eros. Now we're going to hear about what that means. Faithless eros, one who is capable of leaving the mother and forgetting the mother. You know, in other words, there needs to be a masculine aggressiveness sometime. But when it shows up in the Puer, it's in the shadow realm. After he just yielded, and suddenly the shadow comes in. Then you see the masculine aggressiveness. You needed to do it when you kept giving up all the time and being impatient. So impatience is an effect of the mother complex, and in the case of Exupéry, it is also that, but on top of it, it was something very tragic. He had an inborn weakness, and he can't be held responsible for it. His very vitality was crushed by the mother, and this tragic fate of being crushed by the mother, nothing could be done. You know, there's going to be a very interesting statement about that where a very strong reaction was required again and again in this book, none come, you know. Now, somebody asked about faithless eros, and it means the capacity to turn away from time to time to a relationship because the Puer, she mentions, tends to be too weak and too much of a good boy in his relationships and without a quick self-defense mechanism when it's required. So, I mean, he tends to, now this is where it kind of struck home to me. He takes too much from the anima and from outer women. If one of them makes a scene, finds fault with him, he accepts it too much. But then suddenly one day, without any warning, he just has had enough and walks out of the relationship in a completely cruel and reckless manner. He is consciously, he's too weak and yielding, but unconsciously, he is too cruel, reckless, and unfaithful. And she's seen some who take practically anything from women, and then one day just walk out of the situation, and without even with no transition stage, they just are gone. So the yielding good boy, the one who gives in too much, is suddenly replaced by this cold gangster shadow without any human relatedness at all. And she says the same thing happens in analysis with the Puer. They accept everything the analyst says. They never assert their own standpoint, but all of a sudden they say, "I'm going to another analyst," or they just give up. And von Franz says, "You must have just fallen out of the sky if you didn't see that coming." She says, "There's no thanks. There's nothing at all. It's just finished." So this is an interesting statement on the shadow of the Puer. You know, this good boy, you know, the mother's boy. He's consciously, he's weak and yielding. Unconsciously, he's a gangster. So at first, in anything he does, there's insufficient coldness and independence, insufficient masculine aggressiveness. But afterwards, when he flees, there's too much masculine aggressiveness in a negative, inhuman, and unrelated form. And it's much more strength, conscious strength, is required to have the thing out patiently with your girlfriend, your spouse, than to just give in and then secretly walk out. She tells this story one time about a dream of a woman had who was trying to possibly leaving her husband. And there was a bear outside a cave who is taking a stone and smoothing it on the other stone. And she says, that's the stone of relationship. You know, it has friction, but the friction of the stone grinding smooths it, you know. So that's why you need to stick it out, you know. So anyway, now the story continues that he comes from asteroid B612, and you know, the tree's going to be eaten up by the planet is going to be eaten up by Baobab trees. He needs the sheep to eat the trees, you know, and then the exupery says, well, it would take a sheep, it would take a great many elephants to eat such trees. And the little prince says, he would, if he needs a lot of elephants, he would have to put them all on one on top of another, you know, because there would not be space otherwise. So, and exupery does a drawing of this. Now, these drawings are going to be incredibly important, and we'll discuss them a little bit. But this is the drawing here of the elephants that have to stand on top of each other, you know. And the sketch shows 3 elephants on one side and 2 on the other side. And then on the 4th side, there are 2 elephants, but they're facing the other way, you know. And so she says, without knowing anything about Jungian psychology, he has the main function with the 3 elephants and the 2 auxiliary functions with the 2 elephants. They're all alike, but there's one that's slightly overweighted. And then the 4th function, you don't see the elephants' heads. All you see is their backs. So and then he says, no, this is exupery talking about the Baobab tree. Now we got to also look at the picture of the Baobab tree. This is the now we learn that the little prince has a neighbor. This is the little prince's neighbor, and this is what happened to his planet. And exupery says, I do not like to take the tone of a moralist, but the danger of the baobabs is so little understood, and such considerable risks are run by anyone who gets lost on an asteroid. For once I break my reserve of not wanting to be a moralist and say, children, watch out for the baobabs. My friend, like myself, have been skirting this danger for a long time without ever knowing it. So it is for them that I have worked so hard on this drawing. This was the only one that he colored and the one that he did so intricately. And he says, the lesson I pass on by this means is worth all the trouble it has cost me. And perhaps you will ask me, why are there no drawings in this book as magnificent and as impressive as this drawing of the baobabs? And we're going to find this out, that that he says himself that you can see that he worked really hard on it. For the colors are strong, and he went to a lot of trouble. So his reply is simple. I have not been successful when I made the drawing of the baobabs. I was carried beyond myself by the inspiring force of urgent necessity, that there was an urgent necessity to draw this, that with the others he meant that had encountered the baobab tree. So here we touch his main problem. Exupery says that when he made this drawing of the baobabs, he felt the terrific danger of them. There are three big trees, but there also is the fourth figure, a small boy dressed in red with an axe in his hand. And this is the neighbor who is too lazy to pull up the roots of the baobab, so they grow to the size shown in the picture, and then it's too late, and his axe will never cut them down, you know. And the drawing shows the big trees and the helpless boy, and from the little axe, the size of the large trunks, you can see that it's over with, hopeless situation. And this is the urgent drawing, the one that Exupery draws with enormous effort. Now, both of these drawings are so important to the story. If you take the problem of the elephants, which have to be piled on top of each other on the asteroid, you can see what the problem is: the hero, the male hero substance, the thing which was eaten up by the snake, is in the first drawing. In the second drawing, the elephants, the trouble is not that the elephants are too big, but the earth is not strong enough to carry them. Now, all of these things, it's just amazing to me how psychological this book is. You know, the problem isn't that the elephants are too big; it's that the earth is not strong enough to carry them. Now, the planet was very tiny too, the other planet. So, I mean, well, this is the planet, but the one that had the baobab trees. So the elephants are not threatened here. In the first case, they were threatened by the devouring mother. The hero is swallowed by the devouring mother and makes no attempt to get out, apparently. Not like Jonah or anybody else who got swallowed by an elephant, I mean, a whale. The elephants are not threatened here, but there's not enough space for them. Now she goes on this wonderful. This is where, you know, Young told Barbara Hanna one time about Marie Louise von Franz. She says, "You know, she's a genius." Well, just listen to what she says here. There are people who don't have enough earth, and there are people who have enough earth, but they fly off from it and are not in touch with it. The others who have no earth and are not even in touch with it if they did. This means there isn't enough vitality. Earth is the psychological substance, and this motif is repeated again and again in analysis. The great problem in psychotherapy is how much earth substance does a person have? How much can he carry? And we can only guess that and have a feeling impression about it, but it can't be weighed scientifically. And she says sometimes you think a person has not enough earth substance or a psychological substance, and when it comes to critical conflict, suddenly a lot appears, and surprisingly. And other people you think can carry a lot, but then out of the blue, they break down and have no strength at all. So you can't really, the only thing she says is go by the experience. You can't guess sometimes how much carrying substance someone has. And then she mentions in the schizophrenic types, and this is going to be important because Exupery apparently has a slightly split personality. You know, in schizophrenics, there are two types. There's the weak type, which she calls the asthenic type, and the strong type. In the strong type, there's an overwhelming wealth of strength and fantasy in the unconscious, but it's confronted with a relatively weak ego, an ego that's not nearly as strong as the unconscious. And in the strong part, it is the plus side, the very strong unconscious, that makes them ill. In the asthenic or weak type, it's the minus part that makes them ill. Because in the weak type of schizophrenic, neither the ego nor the unconscious are strong. They're both very weak. And people in such a situation have no dreams. And she says it always surprised her in the greatest conflict, when you'd expect a vital reaction from the unconscious, the dreams are either small or petty, or there's no dreams at all. So nature doesn't react in the conflict in the weak schizophrenic. And she says it's very important to know that. In the strong type, one can risk a reckless therapy and confront the person with the problem and risk a terrific crisis, because it will be a healing crisis and they will come through. But you could never do that with the weak type. You have to adopt a nursing attitude because if you push them against the wall, they will break. So these are two important parts of the split personality, but we find out exupery is kind of a combination. So, and she says you don't have to decide this. The dreams will tell you. In general, the unconscious decides. In the asthenic type, the weak type, the dreams do not push the problem. They don't push it in the dreams. So if you're a good analyst and you don't see the dreams pushing the problem, then she says you should know you shouldn't push it either. So she's says that the dreams they do have will talk about only this or that detail of the terrific problem and don't address the main problem. So the unconscious is saying confrontation with this problem may not be possible. And so the unconscious, she says, knows better than I do. And it says this problem can't be touched. It's too hot. It'll explode the person. And you could probably imagine some of the problems that they would have, that you just have to tiptoe around, now, so one has to go along with the little dreams there are, whatever you have, and take the advice contained in them, whatever it is. And this is just the amazing thing about Jungian analysis that is, I think, forgotten in Jungian analysis today, is you let the dreams tell you what to do. What I find a lot in Jungian analysis that I've countered, depending on how, what a Jungian analyst I knew who lives in Sao Paulo tells me the ones she knows who have the ghost in them. If they have the ghost in them, she says, then they're good analysts. And I found out that's sort of what the Portuguese say, the unconscious in them. If they have the unconscious in them, then they're a good Jungian analyst, But if you're going to just sit there and try to, randomly decide what to do in the conscious attitude and not consult even the petty, the little dreams there are to take the advice contained in them, you're not doing Jungian analysis. With the strong type, you generally see the dreams hit directly at the core of the problem and with a great, beautiful, dramatic structure. And then you see the whole thing is driving to a climax. In other words, the very powerful dreams of the strong type are pushing them very strongly and very confidently towards a healing crisis. And after the situation of terrific conflict, the thing decides itself, either for good or evil, now, then she talks about the combined cases. Now, I told you this thing's chock full, but that's why we're going to just cover a little bit, part of it today. But it is the combined, it's so rich, though, and important, every little line here. The strong people have one corner which is weak, and so the situation is mixed. They have a very vital makeup, and they belong to the plus type where risks can be taken. But somewhere in them, there's this minus. And in the combined case, the situation becomes a little more difficult because you have to follow two lines of attack, one putting a lot of weight where it can be carried. The elephant doesn't have enough earth. On the one, you can you can put a lot of weight, but on the other ones, you can't. You need to take endless care, nursing, and patience, because you can't. They don't have enough earth. They don't have enough psychological substance. The hero does not have a standpoint, you know, and so even though they have an unusual capacity for life, they have an extreme vulnerability in one corner, which has to be fenced off. And they usually aren't difficult because of their extreme vitality, but they have to just be told about their weak point. So exupery is a mixed type. He's neither weak nor strong. He has tremendous strength and courage, vitality, and the capacity to change in many situations. But in one corner of his personality, he's extremely weak, and he's lacking in vitality. And that is what this planet personifies. This is his weak corner, the one corner of his personality, which is extremely weak and lacking in vitality. But in his case, it is the essential corner. Everything else, nothing else means anything but that. Okay. So so the symptoms of having no reactions. Now, there's going to be a lot of times, she says, where he should have had a vital reaction to what happened in The Little Prince, and nothing is said, nothing happens. You know, so what is important reaction, which was required throughout the book, never occurs. So you can say that the will to live is too small in comparison with his genius and his capacities. And she says it's symbolized by the planet. Okay, let's look at the planet again. And she says, Earth signifies psychological substance, earth substance within us, signifies the will to live and the acceptance of life. That's his weak point. His weak point is the will to live and the acceptance of life. That's the weak corner in him. And so it's just this incongruity. I mean, he's very strong everywhere, except he has no will to live, and he doesn't have I don't know if you remember him writing about where one day he's going to be sucked down by a whirlpool while he's flying, you know, because he sort of foresaw this, you know, and he says it could be 3 orange trees at the end of the airfield. It could be sheep on the grass, you know, that hit your wheels that you didn't see. So anyway, this is not so much the problem of the Puer Aeturnus in general, but it's this not having psychological substance. But it is exupery's problem. And so the person who has too little earth may be able to assimilate everything in analysis psychologically, but it's almost impossible for him to realize it in reality. So such people take everything in analysis with great honesty and great strength, but when you press them to do something about it in honor reality, nothing happens, other than possibly a panic. At that moment, when the inner realization has to be put into life, this strength and honesty collapses, and you're confronted with the little prince, the negative little prince, the trembling child. And it's this, this is where we're going to come to the two aspects of both the elephant and the little prince. We looked at both elephant pictures, and it's interesting to compare them. they represent reverse situations. So let's look at the first one. This is the first elephant picture. Okay. Now in this one, in the first, the elephant is overwhelmed by the snake. Okay. And in the second, the elephant is the overwhelming thing. He doesn't have enough earth. So in the first case, the elephant is the hero in him is overwhelmed by the devouring mother. In the second case, the elephant is too overwhelming for his hero capacity, his genius, his incredible talents have no earth. They have no psychological substance. So on the one hand, he's being devoured by the mother, and he's the hero in him is being overwhelmed. And the other one, his admitted great capacities and genius are being overwhelming his psychological substance, his earth, which is this right here. This again. Here we go. So there, the elephants aren't being overwhelmed by the devouring mother. They're overwhelming psychological substance or earth, which is the will to live and the acceptance to life of life. So the first angle is the greater personality. The hero has been overwhelmed by the devouring unconscious, by the mother complex, and in the second, the hero personality doesn't have enough foundation to become real. It remains provisional. And, the Puer Aeturnus leads a provisional life. So it's two aspects of the same tragedy. And it's interesting, the little prince himself says first, regarding the first drawing, a boa constrictor is a very dangerous creature. That was his comment. And on the second, the elephant is a very cumbersome thing. So in the first case, the mother is very dangerous. In the second case, your genius and capacity is very large and needs a lot of psychological substance to have room to exist in reality. Okay. So exuperies between the devil and the deep blue sea. He doesn't know how either to accept his greatness or his weakness. Doesn't know how to get along with either of them. Now, then we come to the Baobab trees, and the Baobab tree is, here's his drawing again, and this is the Baobab tree drawing here. Okay. Now, what's happening here? Okay. This is so beautiful. This thing, this first of all, he says that the Baobab trees in the drawing are enormous and give the impression of overrunning the whole star with their luxuriant growth. Mother Nature is overwhelming both the field of human culture and consciousness. So in the picture, you see so this is really an analogy to the hat drawing, where in the first case, the devouring mother is devouring his hero capacity. In the second case, she's devouring his psychological substance and his earth. So he's getting the heart ripped out of him on both sides. So the Baobab, now in the picture, you see the roots of the tree are drawn exactly like snakes. And she says that she does not think it's by chance that the first drawing was of a boa and the second one are of trees called Baobab trees. It's a play on words, and it associates the two factors. The snake and the tree are the same thing, and we'll find this out in a second here. about what the meaning of the usually positive tree is. So both the boa constrictors and the trees are overwhelming, and so we have to amplify the trees because of the play on words and because they're both overwhelming, like we would analyze the snake. So on the negative side. So Gilgamesh has to, she gives some examples. Gilgamesh has to cut down the cedar tree in Ishtar's forest because it represents the power of Ishtar, and it's the thing that he needs to get rid of before he can get the plant of eternal life. You know, he needs to get rid of the devouring mother. And here again, the tree is linked up to the negative mother. And the tree is generally interpreted as a symbol of life, of inner growth, of process of individuation, and of maturing. But here that does not fit. Now we're going to hear some amazing things about individuation here in just a second. The tree is frequently connected with the mother goddess, who is often worshipped as a tree. There's several, Cybele or Artemis's son Attis, and then Osiris and Isis, both had, their trees were both coffins, of them, and they were the son of the mother. And that is what this is the tree that in myth that's called the Death Mother. And at the festival of Attis in Rome, and this is where they think the Christmas tree came from too. In a fir tree was carried with an image of Attis, the Christ. This is why it's associated with Christmas, the fir tree. At the festival of Attis in Rome, a fir tree was carried with an image of Attis at the top of the tree. And then Young mentions an old poem where the Christian cross has been looked on as a terrible stepmother, and it's what killed Christ, the terrible stepmother. So the tree is the mother, the coffin, and has to do with the death of the Puer god, the death of the youth, the devouring mother. And symbolically, the tree often represents the process of individuation. But here, the same symbol is identified with death and the destructive factor. Why? The process of individuation is a process of inner growth to which one is attached. You can't escape it, okay? You might think you can. I'm just going to, Google and watch TV here. But you can't. It's happening inside you. So if you say no to it and you don't accept it, then, and you are not in it, it grows against you. What's happening here? It's one who said no to life. Now, life is growing, they're not growing with life. Life is growing against them. Now, isn't that beautiful? So then it is your own inner growth which kills you. And this is because you have said no to the process of growth and to and the acceptance of life. And so now it is going to kill you. It's not going to grow. You're not going to grow with it. So this means that if a person is completely infantile and has no other possibility, then this is what happens. But if a person has a greater personality within, then there is the possibility of growth, and there's a psychological disturbance will occur. And that's why a neurosis is usually positive. Now, this is the second asteroid. This is if the growth is not accepted, then it grows against you. That we said that process of individuation is inner maturing and growth, and goes on unconsciously and ruins the personality instead of healing it. And this is why the death tree, the mother tree, and the tree of life are essentially connected. The inner possibility of growth in a person is a dangerous thing, because either you say yes to it and go ahead, or you are killed by it. So there is no other choice other than to say yes. It's a destiny which has to be accepted. And I just remembered when she said that of something that this comes from Aniela Yaffe, you know. She says the ego is free and that either can accept the inborn task given to it by nature, by the self, be its agent in the world, fed and nourished by nature's living spring, or not accept the task and live cut off from its roots. Now, von Franz is being even a little stronger here, you know, not just cut off from your roots. Your personality is ruined and it'll kill you. So now this is how, you know, you could name any number of people who died happy and didn't do this, but this is to the person who's aware, you know, and is awake. So if you look at the Puer Aeturnus in the negative sense, say it is a one who did not want to outgrow their mother problem. They didn't want to outgrow their youth, and so they are destroyed by it. Now this is someone who has the Puer, or you know, this principle of growth. They're conscious of it. Okay, you know, he is killed by the very factor in his soul by which he could have outgrown the problem. And so I want to end in a pretty quickly, and we got a lot to go. So I think what I'm going to just end with here is that, let's see, the fact that there are two, well, I want to mention this, that she says it's so important, this fairy tale, Finnish fairy tale, about the child in the tree and what we should do. A man rose out of the sea, a hero from the waves. He was not the hugest of the huge, nor yet the smallest of the small. He was as big as a man's thumb, the span of a woman's hand. And Vainamoinen, who is a famous, he's the god of chance in Finland, the god of chance. He's always shown with a lyre. Got a picture of him. This is that's this Finnish god of chance, and you see there's a little bird on his thing. But anyway, he asks this hero from the sea what he intended to do, and the hero replies, "I am a man, as you see, small, but a mighty hero. I have come to fell the oak tree and splinter it to fragments." And then Vainamoinen, old and wily, scoffs, "Why, you haven't the strength. You'll never be able to fell the magic oak tree and splinter it to fragments." But the little man took his axe. He struck the tree with his axe and smote it with the polished blade once, twice, and a third time. Sparks flew from the axe and a flame from the oak tree as he tried to bend the magic tree to his will. This is the wrong fantasy life he's killing here. The wrong inner life, which is the one that's killing Exupery. And at the third stroke, the oak tree was shattered and 100 boughs fallen, and the trunk stretched to the east, the top to the west, the leaves scattered to the south, and the branches to the north. And now the oak tree was felled, and the proud trunk leveled, and the sun shone again, and the dear moon shimmered pleasantly. The clouds sailed far and wide, and a rainbow spanned the horizons. And she says that this is you see what happens when the inner growth of fantasies pulled down and recognized as simply being the mother complex, the bad inner life, the fantasy life of sexual fantasy, of, just this provisional life where that's the wrong inner life, then another dimension of consciousness appears. The sky is seen again, the clouds can sail far, and the sun and moon can shine. It's not a narrowing of the horizon, which all artists tell you. Oh, I can't do this. I can't cut down that tree because it'll narrow my horizon. But she says, no, it widens your horizon. And it's an infinitely important text, because one of the objections they always bring up is when you want to encourage them to fell the tree of the wrong inner life, is that he does not want a narrowing of his horizon of fantasy. And what would be left if he had to give up his wishful world of fantasies of, she mentions masturbation and other things, he would just be a little petty bourgeois who gives in to his, goes to his office and so on. But she says, not true. If one has the courage to cut down the wrong kind of inner greatness, the overgrown mother, it comes again, but in a better form. And this myth should be told all the time when the hero needs to be cut down the tree. Now, I just want to mention one thing, and then we'll have questions real quickly. The asteroid is doubled. One which is not lost, and the other one which is hopeless. And the second is the shadow star. And she says, up until this point, we didn't know whether the little prince was the infantile shadow or the self, but now it is differentiated into two. And the lazy fellow who let the tree grow too big is the shadow of the little prince, and the divine child doubles, falls apart into it's a serious warning, she says, to exupery, because of the doubling of the divine child into the self and to the shadow. It's a serious warning. One side of the child is infantile and the other is a symbol of the self. That's a warning. Okay. The star prince figure is either the infantile shadow or the symbol of the self. And up till now, until after the figure appeared doubled, you could never know quite which way to take it. And so which will he choose? Will he choose infantilism, or will he choose the future life? It was and is both, and that's his terrible difficulty. And then he mentioned something, I end with this. This is from the child archetype that Jung wrote. The divine child is reborn into a new childhood. It is, and the divine child is both the beginning and the end. It's both the childhood life, and it's our ultimate goal. It's initial and a terminal creature. It's initial creature in that it existed before us, and it's a terminal creature because it will be here when we're gone. So the child symbolizes the pre-conscious and the post-conscious essence of man. His pre-conscious essence, which is contained in the womb of the mother, is the unconscious state of earliest childhood. His post-conscious essence is an anticipation by analogy of life after death, of the ego, which is consciousness, okay? And in this idea, the all-embracing nature of psychic wholeness is expressed. Wholeness is never comprised in the small compass of the conscious mind. It includes the indefinite and the indefinable extent of the unconscious as well. The good inner life, okay? The demands of the inner life this creates this great tension in all of us. The eternal child in man is an indescribable experience, an incongruity, a handicap, and a divine prerogative. It's all of those together. And so it's an imponderable that determines the ultimate worth or worthlessness of our personality. And it was clear that the genius was the divine child in him, because he could not have been this spontaneous and naive without it. But there's something in the source of his creativity at the same time that's a little close to being the worthless aspect, the handicap. Well, anyway, why don't we finish? Do you have something going, Gary, or today?
Yeah, I have an exercise. Boy,
Okay,
this is
great.
like this is so hard to really absorb fully. I mean, this is.
Yeah, I am sorry. It was so chock full of it. But why don't we let's hear from everybody, and then we'll do the exercise. Go ahead.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
So, in this, it said that, perhaps the psyche would be able to handle, confronting the problem, and, they would either win out or, fall to ill. But then another part said that, they might have dreams that indicate, that they really have to be spoon-fed around it and never approach it directly. And I was curious if, like, what would that, can you give me an example of what that dream would be like?
It would not confront the problem. It would go around it. But I mean, what she was saying were just little details like, I would say, let's say you had a very important crisis, in your life. And yet the dreams said, I wanted vanilla ice cream and they gave me chocolate. And that was your dream, I mean,
Right.
then how do you deal with that, Now, it actually probably is referring to your problem, but in a different way, that the unconscious says that you need to, you're not, but what she's saying, if she pushed them against the wall, they would break and really lose it, So she has to give them transfusions. She has to, continually be supporting them, and they're just a very weak figure, and it's somewhat, they're very fragile and vulnerable,
So,
Annette, go ahead, Gary.
Oh, well, I was actually going to ask Annette as well. I thought, well, she does this, painting therapy, right? Annette?
Yes.
So, like, maybe you could comment on what you've seen in this.
Yes. I was really fascinated, of course, with the tree images. It's a beautiful image. And I saw that, of course, as the center of his self, like he's both the tree and the absence. And I was wondering, in what way could you grow the earth, the new earth in him? I was wondering, and to explore that with somebody like that, like what would mean new earth, and perhaps something a really practical approach, like an absolute practical approach, like like, say, if somebody is in that room, that you would maybe ask, like, are all your parts here, or have you left a part of yourself outside now? Like, and which part is not here? Like, there is this fourth function apparently is absent in him, or he doesn't have this earth function. Like, what would that look, like, and if he would leave, I would ask him, would you take all your functions? How can we make sure that you take all your functions with you, or all your parts with you? Like, what would that look like? And maybe constantly to slow down and feel what that feels like to have it all together. And if that is possible, and to say a completely practical approach on the body, like away from the impossible opposites. Like he seems to have impossible opposites inside himself, like maybe focusing, for instance, very much on his body and his bodily needs, and how did he look after that today? Because that might be a sign of Earth. Or what do you think?
Well, you know, hopefully we learn more as it goes forward, but she's sort of saying he's fatally flawed. Now, the fact that he doesn't have enough earth, and how do you get more earth or psychological substance? She defines psychological substance as the will to live and the acceptance of life, you know, that is very resilient in you. And, you know, I think, you know, now one thing Viktor Frankl said that, you know, I always think is so beautiful. I think he actually got it from Nietzsche, but it was, he who has a why to live can put up with almost any how, you know. So, you know, he lived in a place where he had a great will to live, you know, so he could put up with any how. But I think if the way to gain more earth is to gain meaning, you know, is to gain, I mean, if you have a why to live, I think that gives you psychological substance. The psyche is substance. The dreams are substance. They're the only substantial thing we have. And yet we call them unreal, you know. But
Yes, but okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Annette. Go ahead, Annette.
Okay, but how to create that meaning if it's absent in every way? You know what I mean? If he is actually constantly in danger, like how to create meaning is for
Well,
him that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to just give you my take on it. I'm not saying it's the right answer, but for me, what I understand as meaning, okay, is the third thing. You know, it is that new thing that's created from an image and from ego having a dialogue with it. That creates the symbol, and that is the first. Then we take that symbol and we put it on the altar of our personal myth, and then we fill our altar with these symbols, you know. And that's why the inner life is so important. The life without the inner life is, it might have, let's say I'm going to be totally, my wife is just, now she said she's going to listen to this, so I shouldn't say too much, but she is a total earth mother, you know. And so her meaning of life is children, you know, and not just children, but young animals. And she says, and Ramakrishna would always ask when people came to him, do you like your God with form, like Shiva or Vishnu, or do you like your God without form, like Om or Brahman or something? And this one woman says to him, she says, well, I have to admit that I don't believe in God at all. and he says, well, what do you believe in then? And she says, I believe in my little nephew. And she says, that's your God. So now, are you an extrovert? Do you find meaning and reality in the outer world? Or are you an introvert and do you find meaning and reality in the inner world? You know, it's a great mystery. You know, I mean, alchemy teaches us it's through the dialogue, and I'm an arch introvert, so I wouldn't take what I say for let's just get a few words from everybody. Carlos, do you have any comments? You don't? How about you, Arpine? Or can you
thank you very much, and it was very interesting. You put everything in detail and in a particular way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Am I pronouncing your name right too? How could you pronounce your name?
Arpine. Arpine.
Arpine. Okay, Arpine.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, thank you, Arpine. How about you, Melissa? Do you have any comments? You don't, or no, none?
Actually do. Yeah, sorry, I'm
Okay,
just
sure.
not really good with Zoom. Yeah, well, I was just thinking when you were talking about that lack of earth and consistency and that that grasping to life and wanting to live and just you know, when that person doesn't have enough of that consistency,
Substance. Yeah.
substance, and then it's and then this person basically is doomed because it lacks that substance.
Mhm.
Isn't it that to live one must to die first? And I'm just thinking, because that weakness that you were referring to, i I feel that a lot of people, before they can allow this new earth to be born, must kill first that one that doesn't resonate anymore, or that one that was given to us or we have um, inherited from the collective, but it's not really us. Like individuation is also like disconnecting from the collective and just killing those parts. And so when she refers about killing, or he like this person who lacks was it substance, I think to find its own substance one must die first, as is, then we can be reborn. And I also believe that that part where, you know, when you say no to growth,
Mhm.
and then therefore when you are ready to grow, then now you will grow in the wrong direction. I think the most beautiful trees are all crooked. And I really don't think there is just one way. It must,
Mhm.
you know, you say no that one time because you weren't open to it, because maybe there was much darkness at that time, whatever. But I think you are, when the right time for you comes, I think you're being called to open that door. And I think there is this willpower. You decide whether you want to go into that growth path or not. But I think there's always doors to open. I think there's always another chance to say, okay, I missed that one, but there's always the next one. And then just,
Mhm.
am I ready to catch the next train or the next door, whatever comes to you. So that was just because as you were talking, I was just I just keep getting this, you know, idea that, okay, yeah, one must die. I wrote it down. I think one must die to truly live. We must be willing to die to then fully live. Sorry, thank you.
No, that's very wonderful, and it's really is the you know, I work, my wife works a lot with AA, and you find that unless Jung says you can't be fully human unless you hit bottom, you know, and hitting bottom means you give up everything, and it does sometimes mean ego death. Okay, so what happens? Sometimes a person who is you know, not wanting to live, and they try to, you know, maybe do something about it and fail, that often is what wakes them up. You know, like for instance, a near-death experience. What happens to a person after they have a near-death experience? They're never the same, you know, because they've actually seen what it means not to exist. Then the will to live awakes in them, you know, psychological substance. The will to live and the acceptance of life comes after you've experienced what you were just describing, Melissa, which is very, very true, you know, and our rhizome, our root, does develop in crooked ways, you know. It's funny. And, you'll see a tree on a windy cliff and it all grows this way, I mean, it adapts, So yes, Melissa, I think that is absolutely true. Now let's hear from Charles and Jordy. But Charles, you're kind of an expert on lack of Earth dreams. Do you have anything to say about that? About the?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes me think of that one dream with the hamster swimming around in the water, needing more land for it.
Yes.
One thing I was thinking about was that I think the whole Puer situation is helped out a lot by doing shadow work and trying to integrate the shadow, because all of the fight is within the shadow. That's how I put it. And I think it's almost like all these qualities that the Puer would think are offensive to the mother, that he would do them, but he doesn't want to lose the mother's love. Those qualities are in the shadow. And those are the qualities that are going to kind of break him free and start, kind of trying to just, wrangle life and really enforce his will and try to develop that ego strength. And yeah, so I think the Puer benefits from work with the shadow very highly. And yeah, I don't know. That's all really I have.
Well, I learned a little bit about my own shadow. It's the ruthless gangster. I always thought I didn't have a shadow, but now I know what it is. I've seen myself doing this, but also that confronting the mother is that masculine aggressiveness, that ardor, that is what Jung called faithless eros. The only way that a Puer, now this is not for a person who's not a Puer, but for a Puer to break out of the womb is to be faithless to the mother and to use his masculinity and his courage and his resiliency, which he's, kind of defined his work. Well, Jordy, I am sorry you're at the bottom of the picture frames, but what do you have to say?
Well, first that I am very pleased to be here, surrounded by this magnificent group of people and this impressive, superb presentation. I can be more flattering or more astutely flattering, but I am impressed. I am reincorporating from my meditation Lent. So I am full of quietness and balanced energy. Now, there are plenty of things to elaborate upon what has been said today, which is putting on the table a lot of materials which connect to plenty of things, and I am sure plenty of personal issues. Personal issues of the participants, of the people related to the participants. I cannot but ask myself of the quality of my parenthood and helping my children to cut the umbilical cord and this type of thing. If I can say 3 things, if I am allowed, I will say.
Yeah, sure.
A medical metaphor or a medical analogy. We are discussing here anatomy or physiology. We are not discussing therapeutics. But before entering into therapeutics, what to do, we better get well and right anatomy and physiology. In the sense that we are talking about representations of things we are happening or people are living. Know how the single individual is going to play their hand at their poker game. The second thing I want to say is double. We are not alone in society and in life. And part of the Puer, say the pop part of the Puer Aeturnus, Walt Disney side, what was this fellow, Peter Pan and the type of thing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They have a problem of slipping away in a puerile form the unpleasantness of life. Generally, to have had a bad quality over motherhood. At some point, you have to beat the dust or overcome the fear of beating the dust. When you beat the dust, you lose the fear. You know the real deal. That's clarifying. It can be very painful, and you can get killed beating the dust. I mean, I will not recommend that as a recommendation or as an approach. But again, these type of shocks whip out the fantasies of beating the dust when you know the real thing. Now, other people count. And at some point, you have to face the music. And you have to be put in the situation of facing the music by others. That's what initiation is about. Say, a traditional way of facing the music and beating the dust is doing the military service, which is a shower which cleans you of the shit fantasy and you taste the real shit. I mean, no big deal. You can survive. That, in a sense, is clumsy, but it's initiatory. But means a group of people with some agenda and with some know-how. Other psychoanalytical schools use the term grounding. It's not the same as Earth, rather than the ability to relate to her and to be present and connected. I leave it here. And now,
go ahead. You look very balanced, by the way.
Thank you. Now, you know that you're a sucker for that. Now, my piece of gossip. I like Saint-Exupéry so much that I went to the airport where he first soloed.
Wow.
Which was in Strasbourg. Strasbourg is a frontier town of Germany and France. And the French built a major military base 2 centuries ago. And they had a school of engineering, French style with mathematics and everything, and were pioneers of aviation. And in this school is where now is a small, tiny airport inside Strasbourg. Le Polygon, it's called, is where Saint-Exupéry soloed. I was living in Strasbourg, so it was easy. And it's where, more to the point, the Red Baron and Shasta One surrendered their plane.
Wow.
That's a piece of gossip for today.
Yes, Richthofen.
He had both.
Yes.
This Saint-Exupéry had courage.
Definitely.
At age 45 or something like that, they joined a frontline unit, and which was over the age because he was doing things what, say, the squadron chief was 28 or 29, and he was 45, flying alone over the German flag in the south of France, and he got hit there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there was one witness to it, and then somebody found his necklace. They thought he was gone forever, but they found something.
They found the plane.
Yeah, right.
3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was like 1987 or 98 or something.
Yeah, about that time.
Yeah.
So that's for the gossip. Now, again, I hasn't got the chance for me to read the whole thing just per use, but I bet that I'm going to replay this video a couple of times. And I appreciate a lot Jean Claire notes now, which I want to make.
Yeah, well, I always will send Jan's notes, which are very helpful too. And so I think next time we're going to we have to a little bit to finish here. I was wondering, Angel, did you or Dawn, do you have anything to say? Or Jan has said plenty, I think, in the chat. But if you just want to, if you want to say something. Just...
No, dear heart. Just hello, everyone.
Oh, hi, Angel.
I've enjoyed this quite a bit.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Angel. Well, I am going to turn it over now to. Oh, go ahead, Jordi.
I mean, the other participants, Annette, Melissa, Arpina, made quite perform points.
Yes.
Which would merit a single presentation, each one of them.
Yeah, I think, Melissa, you're doing analysis, right, with in Canada, yeah. So she's, and they were good points, very good points. And it's not as clear cut as this, but I think that the clear cutness of it is helpful. You know, sometimes like in economics, they always say, what would happen if you had a 0% tax rate?
Yeah.
And what would happen if you have a 100% tax rate? You know, so you kind of then find out what the middle is, you know, where the optimum is. But anyway, Gary, I'm turning it over to you now, and you can do anything you want. I'm going to just keep quiet.
Great. So in the chat, I sent a link, and you'll want to download that file, which is a set of paintings. And today we're going to do another dialogue with paintings. So everybody get that link and holler out if you have a problem. And Jordy, I really enjoyed your definition of being grounded, and also relating it to you know, to initiatory, you know, an initiation.
Mm-hmm.
So is everyone able to download the file? Great. And then, because what you should see is, if you open it, you should see this. And great. Okay, so the idea behind this is that you're going to go through these paintings, and when you go through them, I want you to do it in a slightly different manner than what we've done in the past. You know, in the past, I think we just looked for, you know, pretty much what appeals. But in this case, I want you to look more at the, you know, the forms, the shapes, and the light and dark, and make your selection based on, you know, the light and the shadow within the painting, or the overall form, and, you know, and see what appeals. So the general idea behind this is that, you know, we're going to basically try to become like children, and we're going to do some pretending. And within that painting, you're going to select either a character or an object. And that object you should think of as being alive, as having its own autonomy. It's not so much a part of you, it has its own autonomy. And what you're going to want to do is get an impression of the feeling that you have, the feeling of either the character or the object. And then using that feeling, you'll want to try to connect to that, to a particular place in your body. And if you can feel it, like, let's say you feel it in your chest. If you feel it in your chest, and, you know, and you're doing some dialoguing, so, you know, you're writing some things down. And if you can write it as poetry instead of prose, and it doesn't have to be good, that's better, because it helps to keep the rational out. It certainly doesn't have to be good poetry. But the idea behind this is to, you know, we're trying to make the trip over to the left side of the brain. And this is, you know, and I stole this idea out of a painting book where they teach you to draw. And, you know, and he goes through a number of examples where if you look at light and shadow and forms, you know, you literally, it makes it difficult to engage the rational side. You know, he gives some examples. But for us, this is really handy because we want things from the unconscious without having to spend, 15 or 20 minutes getting to that place using some, relaxation or meditative techniques. So I'm going to start some music, and then I want you to, select the painting, and then once you've got it, just stop. Don't go any further. Close your eyes and just get into a good space, and then I'll tell you when to go on. Tell me if the music is too loud. So you're going to select a painting, and then you're going to stop, and you're going to get into a meditative state. And I'll tell you when we start the next step. So for whatever painting you've selected, I want you to look at it, but look at it as the light and shadow. Look at it as the spatial relationship of the objects in the painting, and I'll tell you when to stop. Now, for the next 2 minutes, I want you to simply look at what you're going to work with. I want you to give it some of your aliveness, celebrate its autonomy. It is not you. It has its own voice. Feel what it is like to be in its body. Can you feel its hand as it does? What emotion is there? Go into the emotion. Feel the emotion in this autonomous character. I'll tell you when to stop. Now begin the dialogue. You can go back and forth where it says something and you say something, or maybe it just has a speech to make. But write it down. And if you can, do it through poetry, not prose. If you can't, that's fine also. I'll tell you when to stop. Okay, we'll stop there. And then what I'll do is I'm going to scroll through these images. And if I'm going past an image, a painting that you did, then let me know, yell out, and I will stop and you can, read your dialogue if you wish.
Yes, I did the first one.
Great. All right. The very first one or the next one down? I think you're muted.
Sorry, yeah, but the first one with the boat, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
So I had the mist in the background, reminds me of Avalon and the goddess of the water, the lady of the water, the journey into the water, moving images like a butterfly opening. And then there was a soft sound in the background and I can hear the waves and the light in the distance. I'm coming closer. And the next thing, I am the boat. And the dialogue, it told me, don't stop, don't go back. Allow yourself or myself to float. And the next thing is that I'm so incredibly happy. Every cell in me is happy because I'm floating on the water. And then I hear a horn in the distance. And I'm getting closer to land. Then there is this silence and there's a kind of a worry about being lost. Have I lost the way completely? And I'm slowly seeing land again. Yeah, that's it.
Wow, that is just beautiful, Annette. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's just
a journey.
Yeah.
Journey.
That's yeah, just incredible.
Thank you.
Butterfly, anyone? And remember to unmute when you speak up. The pyramid key.
I did that one.
Great.
Well, I'm actually Aries anyway, so the ram's head of intuition rests at the foot of the tree, the rooted place, and within it is the lion of illumination, the solar deity, and above it is the apples of feeling and sensation, and below is this quaternity of the four. And then the ram says, I am the spring god of wholeness. I am the god of the self who sends you your dreams, and my eyes and my countenance speak of the place your dreams come from. You are my vessel, and you are here to grow with me.
Wow. It's like nice.
Did the moon.
Go ahead. Or,
So I have a drawing that I did like a year ago.
oh my gosh. Oh, that is so close. That's just amazing.
So
Wow.
I just had to.
Yeah, I can see why.
And what it came to me was I tried to capture the beauty of Luna, and wanting to see it better, I naively projected my light onto it, and the more light I sent its way and showered it with, the blurrier she became. For now I understand she needs the shadows to cast her beautiful moonlight. And now I am relaxed, I'm at peace to know that every night we get united by Mother Night.
Wow.
So, I don't know.
I just love the synchronicity too. That I mean, it was really the paintings were so close.
It
Yeah.
just, yeah, I get the goosebumps just I saw it. I was like,
Oh
oh no.
yeah, wow. I mean, that's just, and I love the idea too that as you're projecting the light, it actually causes it to like occlude. That you
Yeah.
lose it,
Very
and
good.
that it needs the night. That's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Melissa.
And if I go past, just tell me to go back.
Cossack, I did this one.
Go ahead. Maybe muted.
And I dialogued with her, and I asked, tell me about your mood, and she answered, I can't. And I asked why, and she said that I just want to listen with my eyes closed, and I want to feel with my heart. Everything is so harmonic, and I want to feel the harmony of the universe, the peace and the beauty.
Beautiful.
That's
Very
that's-
authentic. Very authentic. Beautiful.
What was it Jung said? Jung said that the journey from the mind to the heart could be a journey of like
40 years.
Yeah,
Or 20 years.
But that when it was made, you would see everything very differently. It just what you said there just really reminded me of that. Very nice.
Yeah. Thank you, Arpane.
thank you too.
Last one. Well, we went a little over, but thank you for, everyone that read their dialogue. Definitely a very nice set. And so, Craig, you want to unmute? And Craig, you're muted.
Yeah, I think Jordy had something to say.
Oh, okay.
Gary, I have to confess that I was overwhelmed by, there were 20, and to peruse over the 20, it took me a good 3 or 4 minutes just to feel how I react. So I choose to do the first, which had situational elements on what page I am.
Is that the boat?
What? The boat, yeah, the first one.
Yeah, the boat.
I was doubting in, why I doubt that between these and 3 or 4 of the others may be a subject in itself. Because as a looking glass, there are plenty of meanings. And there are meanings, say, more difficult to deal with, like the smoking ones or the pop and piano ones, etc. Or the vegetal figures. But I was overwhelmed, to choose with. And to me, the boat somehow reflected on what page I am. I am losing the zoom here. 1 second. The symbolism was clear and direct, and what each element was telling to me. And the light was telling, they said, all of that is true, but look for what's missing. and stop being maroon. You say it in English. Stop. It was a call to start sailing again somehow, but I didn't have much time to engage. One day I started telling things meaningfully. Look. So thank you for.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, you actually got quite a bit. It sounds like it's like a, an image that you could work with more later. And I agree. I think, I don't know, if we had a lot of time, I would start off with breath work to get us like in a really relaxed state. And then, I'd definitely allow more time for the writing. So, the way we do it is pretty challenging. But thank you for your contribution, Julie.
Choosing is not easy, and it's the type of thing that, and I want to comment it, I am reluctant to do it alone by myself. I rather say explore that with the guidance of someone more versed. Again, it keeps me more grounded. Do that here with you.
Yeah. Right. Oh, and I guess one final comment too is so I'm thinking of kind of going back and forth between like these dialoguing with paintings and then really what I would call yoga nidra meditations, just because I like that the guided meditation working with the breath can put us into such deep states within 15 minutes, so that we have a little more access to the unconscious. But if anyone if anyone has any real preferences, go ahead and send them to Craig, and we'll kind of keep track so that I don't drive people crazy with what I do with like too much dancing or something, for example.
I don't want to interfere with the cook. You're doing a good job, Gary.
Well, thank you.
Anyway, thank you, everybody. And next time we'll just keep going through this, and I think we're going to learn a lot. I've learned a ton through this, and I think this is a really good way to learn too. I mean, I think I learned more reading with the group than I would ever do on my own. So.
Oh yeah, Carlos had a nice. It looks like. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, that's very good, Carlos. That's
wow.
You know the old teacher's dictum. From a formal lecture, the one who gets the most is the one giving the lecture.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, I work hard at it, but I learned so much, and it's anyway. I think this is an exciting book, and we'll get into. It's going to get even better. I mean, she really is a genius. So I think we're going to learn a lot. Plus, she's very earthy, which I kind of like too. So anyway, well, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye, Melissa and Gary and Annette, Carlos, Charles.
All right, see you, everybody.
Arpane, Dawn. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye now.